We're back. Hipsterless
Welcome,
Hangout.
welcome back to Hipsterless Hangout, episode.
6, we're hoping. Yeah, we
I
don't
don't know
know.
why a couple of times that's become so tedious to remember, but we are your hosts, as always. I'm Lola, and with me, as always, is Theo.
Yeah, exactly. A wispy as always is Garth. We do eventually have to do Wayne's World on this show.
Wayne's World 1 and 2. Do you want to
Yeah,
review them both? Because I sure do.
maybe we'll do a double feature episode.
That's a good idea. Yeah, if movies have good sequels like the Addams Family sequels, that would be a good call to do them back to back. Good call. Good call.
Good call, Garth. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to start a review talking about a different movie than the one we're talking about. Also,
Well, no, it'll get them excited, the audience excited for episode number 57 when we finally get around to reviewing Wayne's World 1 and 2. But here today, we are reviewing Kalifornia, spelled with a K. Do you know why it's spelled with a K? Is there some kind of symbolic significance with that or to that?
I was gonna bring this up. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think of the title? Because it never is in the movie, and in fact, like, it's kind of only a loose plot thread that they're going to California. But you hear that title and you think of the Brad Pitt character, and you can almost imagine, like, if you don't know this movie or if you've seen it a long time ago, you can almost imagine that maybe there's a scene where they're like hitchhiking because the whole thing is that they're kind of these odd hitchhiking partners, or not, they're not actually hitchhiking, but they're kind of these odd road partners. And you can almost imagine, like, is there a scene where he like spells it wrong and has a sign out there, and that's when David Duchovny picks him up? But no, it's not in the movie, right? You didn't see it in the movie.
It's not. I don't know if it's an alluding to Brad Pitt's character early just being this complete white trash individual who probably, not probably, but may potentially not know the real spelling. I do not know. But California is what we are reviewing today. What is the year that it came out? Was that mid 90s as well, or
Yeah,
it was one of the two?
I'll look it up. I believe it's 94, because the other big thought I had was like, it's kind of crazy, and I don't know, like, your thoughts. But this came out before the movie Seven, which was like the big Brad Pitt, thriller, horror, sort of gritty. This came out in 93. Seven comes out in 95. And Seven, like, everyone knows Seven. It kind of launches Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's like stratosphere level actor after that. And I feel like this one kind of gets overlooked, right?
I don't know why that is. It's kind of like how Cape Fear. I mean, I thought Robert De Niro just did a phenomenal job in that movie. Also starring Juliette Lewis, by the way. She's in California, but that one gets overlooked too. I don't know what the deal is with that because I thought that the level of malevolency of Brad Pitt's character not only was really impressive on its own, but it was very out of. He was a new actor at this point, hadn't really established like a niche or a trend. But as a newcomer, he did a phenomenal job, and I don't know why some movies get overlooked and why some are held up as being more of an emblem of breakout characters and or themes. But this one was very much overlooked. I mentioned before that it's even hard to find on streaming services. It's never offered for free anywhere. It, well, I'm sorry, except for Amazon intermittently, but if you're looking for it on YouTube or other paid services, it's not popular, and I can't figure that one out.
No, and then you pointed out that it was free online, so we rewatched it. Now, I think from my memory, this is probably like high school era when we might have originally seen this, like maybe early high school. I haven't seen it in years. It's probably been over 20 years. Um, does that seem like right to you? I mean, we probably originally saw this around the same time.
You know, incidentally, I'm not going to say her name, but I had a best friend beginning in elementary school and extending up. It was an off and on friendship, but extending up until the early part of high school. And she was the first friend I had who also had an interest in dark subject matters. And she introduced me to, including but not limited to, this movie. Because before that, I just didn't have friendships like that or friends who were also interested in subject matters that were just darker in taste. And she introduced me to this movie. I remember watching it at least once with her, and that would have been probably middle school. So I probably saw it in the late 90s, but it was not new by that point. It would have already been out for a number of years. So I didn't know that it was that old.
No, it doesn't feel that old. If you saw it now and if you didn't know anything about it, you would assume that this was after Seven, right? You would assume like, oh, Brad Pitt comes onto the scene in Seven and it's kind of this dark, gritty crime film. And then to capitalize on that, they then cast him in this. This one doesn't work out. And then he kind of just, gets into romantic comedies and, epic movies or whatever. But like, I don't think anyone would watch this and they would think it was a precursor. Just so that we get it out of the way, what are your thoughts on Seven before we get back to California?
Like that movie. I especially do like the ending part. I think that the twist at the end was really well played. I thought that Brad Pitt and Kevin Spacey showed a lot of depth of character. I like Kevin Spacey a lot. It's not one of my favorite movies. Um, it's just not. I don't especially care for Morgan Freeman. I like I said, I do like especially the last third of it once Kevin Spacey's character is caught and the kind of game that he's playing comes to light and it accelerates in pace. And I do like a quicker paced movie. That one, Seven, seems dark, gritty, which is fine. I have no issue with that. California did not, and I like it more so. So just because a movie is dark and gritty and has a somber score and is very shadowy in its presentation does not necessarily guarantee marks in my book. California is, for the most part, shot in sunny scenes and a lot of breeze in the car and landscape, and it didn't matter. Everybody, well, Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis specifically did a outstanding job, and I like it more than Seven. What are your thoughts on Seven?
I was almost gonna say exactly the same thing. Like, I've definitely seen Seven more. I've seen it more recently than this. And I guess overall, it's like I really appreciate the power that this movie has without resorting to sort of the like excess to which Seven kind of delves into, I mean, he's literally like Kevin Spacey's character is literally like making some obese guy eat pasta and like, there's like dildos and all that. It's like it's just so insane the length to which that movie goes. And you know, like I like some of the acting is tremendous, and I like some of, like, it's shot incredibly well. But you're right, this has the power of being shot in daylight without excessive grisly images, without, like, this is almost, you know, this is almost not even like an R-rated movie. It obviously is, like, it's got enough blood and language, but it doesn't have the traumatic kind of, like, you know, everything's gross, everything's gnarly. It's not, it just feels very much more realistic. You know, I have this problem with a lot of like these horror movies where, and Seven's so indicative of this, these horror movies where it's like, not only would this character never exist in the real world, but they would be either, you know, like the most wealthy person in the world, or they would just be such a super villain. Kevin Spacey in that movie is just like a super villain from a comic book. You know, he's so outlandish, he's so otherworldly. Like, what's his motivation? You know, it's so completely insane. And the reality of serial killers is so much more like early in California, just some like drifter who's kind of an idiot and who doesn't really understand what he's doing, and he doesn't have kind of this empathy, so he just keeps doing it. And it's like, it's shocking and it's scary because it feels realistic, not because it's overblown.
Yeah, he is a hitchhiker who you could pick up, and what do you know? He's this heinous, deplorable individual. But that's true. When I say that I like Seven, I mean, sure, I do. But it's dependent on shock. It's shock
Mm-hmm.
when some obese guy is getting his stomach punctured, and then a prostitute is having her face blown off, or her nose cut off to spite her face, and then somebody is holed up in his apartment for a year and exposed to as much pain and suffering as he possibly can. And it's going
Yeah.
for this superhero, really exaggerated effect, deliberately or not. And if you need that shock value to elicit intrigue and interest from the audience, then, well, California is more so dependent on solely the acting of the characters, because you don't see a lot of grisly scenes, and maybe toward the end it kind of amps that part up, but not extremely.
Mm-hmm.
Really strays away from that and focuses more on the deception of early to David Duchovny's character, and they were kind of budding friendship, and in in an unexpected way. And then the dynamic between um I'm forgetting her name, Adele, um and
Oh yeah.
early Adele, and that was really interesting too, to watch their exchanges. And Juliette Lewis did a really good job with that as well.
And Juliette Lewis is like absolutely tremendous in this movie. I want to say, like, this might be my hot take, but I think that this is my favorite Brad Pitt performance, actually. You know, I just think he's incredible in this. He pulls off the accent incredibly well. He is so charismatic and likable when he needs to be. When he's interacting with David Duchovny, he's just like kind of this kind of shit heel guy who kind of like is testing out David Duchovny to kind of be like, which one of us is the alpha male, which one of us is the you know, the intellectual versus the hillbilly redneck. and and then they're, you know, they both have these women that they're both sort of into the other one's woman. Like, Brad Pitt's character is obviously really into Michelle Forbes, who's with David Duchovny, and David Duchovny's kind of checking out Adele sometimes. And it's just this really compelling relationship, and I think it is solely sitting on Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis. I don't think the other two actors bring a ton to this. I think they're kind of blank pieces of paper, but because Brad Pitt and because Juliette Lewis are so good in this role, it really makes the movie work.
Yeah, hands down, this is my favorite Brad Pitt performance. And it's so fascinating too if you watch him a few years prior in Thelma and Louise, which was actually his breakout role as an actor. And he's as beautiful as they come. He's young, he's blonde, he's striking to look at, and he's, I'm sorry, striking to look at, and he's supposed to be in that movie. And I appreciate that Brad Pitt could have, if he had wanted to, basically relied upon his looks to play leading romantic roles. And he's done that sometimes, but California is such a deviation from anything attractive or physically appealing. I still find him appealing in my own way because that hyper masculine presentation that he so embodies and does so well was phenomenal, that portrayal. But he's not afraid to be dirty and and scruffy and greasy, and he's not dependent on what's underneath all of that at all. And it's so believable at the same time.
It is. It's such a realistic feeling character. It just feels very authentic. You know, you almost expect for this to be based on like a true story or something, or at least inspired by a true story. And just like really quick, the plot is basically I don't remember character names as always, but David Duchovny and Michelle Forbes are going to drive cross country, and they kind of, I forget like how they discover the other two, but they give them a ride cross country. Brad Pitt kills his landlord in the trailer park as they leave, and then as they're driving, there's kind of a trail of blood behind them as they like stop off at a gas station, and kills again, and um, it's a pretty simple A to B plot. It's mostly like a road movie, and it's mostly like a vibe movie. It's not like, you know, setting up the dominoes and watching them fall as far as the plot goes. It's a very simple plot, which I think really helps the movie. It lets the performances shine through. You don't have to get caught up in what's happening with the story.
That's funny that you should say that because Thelma and Louise is very much a road trip movie too. So I wonder if Brad Pitt made that connection. You know, this time I'm not going to be the pretty passenger who gets picked up and kind of disposed of when my, 15 minutes of screen time are depleted. This time I'm going to pull a complete 180 and be this sadistic sociopath who basically, I mean, it's basically his film. So I don't know if he made that connection. That's more just like a funny connection that I'm making for the first time. But they are movies that are primarily centered in daylight, in a car, on the road. And I like road trip movies. These are the two I'm thinking of that I like that kind of intimate exchange between the characters and being able to see where they go and all the stops they make and the landscape and how that facilitates the plot. What did you, well, we already have agreed that we both mutually really appreciate Juliette Lewis, but did you say that this is your favorite performance of hers as well?
It's probably up there. You know, she's one of those actresses that isn't in a ton of movies. Like I'm sure she's in a lot that I haven't seen. I do think she was absolutely excellent in Cape Fear, and that might it's hard to compare the two because in a way I think that this character might be harder to play because it's hard to play someone who's like kind of stupid. I guess, you know, her character's not like it's it's extremely well written, but her character is clearly not supposed to be the most educated, sophisticated person, and she really grounds that in reality. She plays the character with integrity, and you believe it. It's got to be between this and Cape Fear, though. I mean, she kind of vanished off the map, unfortunately. Like I couldn't tell you 10 movies she's done in the last 20 years even. Like it's kind of sad. Like I don't know. Beyond like Whip It, that's the last thing I can think she was in. Um
Recommend a movie that you watch. It's always, thank goodness, because it's a really great movie that also gets overlooked for whatever reason, along with Airheads and this movie, California. I don't get it. I don't understand the decision making process of whoever makes those decisions to make some movies so so unrecognized and unappreciated. But it's called The Fourth Floor, and she's a little older in it, or she looks older, but I think it's also mid 90s.
okay,
And
I'm gonna write it down.
right, I think
For
you'll really like it, and we should review it because she's the main character in it and does a phenomenal job. But she can just enact and portray and embody such a range of characters. She's in The Fourth Floor, she's a more mature individual. She's living on her own and has her own apartment, so she's very much an adult. In California, she is very much not. She's a very young, flighty, traumatized child, basically. She's playing a child, and she gravitates to early because she felt protected by him. And I can understand that even though he is this sociopathic person, she's not sophisticated enough to be able to sense that or recognize it or look at warning signs. But I can understand that experience of also feeling protected by somebody who has a violent streak. And even though it had in turn intermittently been turned on her, she felt protected by that. And I can understand the appeal in that case.
well, it's one of those remarkable things about humanity. You know, you see people who, the thing about serial killers and the thing that I don't like about Seven is that it paints this serial killer as kind of a mastermind who's kind of different from the rest of humanity. And the harsh reality is like these are just people and they have regular relationships, maybe not the same kind of relationships as you and I, but like a lot of serial killers have had legitimate romantic partners. A lot of killers have had partners in crime who like knew that they were doing it and didn't stop them or didn't intervene or whatever, and these people were completely innocent. And it's really crazy to think about like, yeah, there's a part of her that understands even when she knows what he's capable of. There's a part of her that understands, but he won't do that to me until he does. You know, he does kill her in the movie later when she really stands up to him and when she really pushes back, which I think is, again, it shows how far this character will go. And by the way, because we haven't decided what we're doing next, and I looked it up, the fourth floor is streaming, and I think that that's what we should do next week then, or next time.
It's a great movie. I can guarantee you that you'll like it. One of my favorite movies. I remember seeing it in these grainy black and white pixels on our father's tiny little television in Northern California when I was about 9. And I saw little clips of it and was just fascinated by it even then, and then somehow discovered it years later and thought, oh my goodness, that's that movie that I
Oh
saw,
wow.
15 years ago. And this time, of course, I was able to watch the whole thing, and I have many times since then. This movie, The Fourth Floor, also has Shelley Duvall, much different than she is in The Shining. And yeah, much different physically, just age wise. but it's got just a great cast and great plot, great Juliet as ever. I feel like I'm negating some other actor or actress who's in it, but you'll see.
I don't remember it at all. If I saw it on, if I saw it at our house, I don't remember it. But I mean, I have a lot of fleeting memories of weird movies from our childhood, and texted you that too. I suggested we watch some of those random weird things that we used to own because it would be so weird to go back and rewatch some.
Hey, how about Kids 1995? The fact that
Yeah.
one of our parents had the audacity to rent that movie for us, it's very, very hard for me to be disturbed by movies. That's one of the three that come to mind when I think about being disturbed by a movie. Yeah. um, well,
Definitely.
that's one movie that I have that I had clips from, just mental clips from having been introduced to it at way too young of an age than we should have. But then years later, I was able to watch that movie in its entirety, and I don't recommend it.
I know that, like, we kind of talked about this last time, and I wanted to ask you. So, we kind of alluded to the acting of the other two in this movie. So, we know Michelle Forbes, who plays David Duchovny's partner. We know her from Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's where we know her from. And in this movie, she's kind of this really steely, unemotional, very like almost unapproachable woman. I think she's actually really good in the movie. I just don't know like what do you think? Because she's definitely like not a likable character, sort of.
What is the question?
I guess just what do you think of her acting and the performance and the character?
I think the performance was okay, but I think that movies kind of get under my skin when they have this dynamic that develops where it's not really fleshed out. Okay, so all of a sudden she becomes suspicious of early, okay, then she turns on her boyfriend as if he is enabling some kind of behavior. Dude, the two of you agreed to take this road trip. You were part of that deal. So the concept that she all of a sudden became so disturbed and very quickly by this fellow hitch I'm sorry, not fellow hitchhiker, but fellow passenger, to the point that she very quickly and in very close succession pivoted that discomfort on her boyfriend as if he was trying to, deceptively set up some plot, and it just didn't really it wasn't sensical why she all of a sudden became so distrusting, and why she felt entitled to basically take that out on her boyfriend. She was right about early, I'll give her that, but the dramatic way that she pivoted to her boyfriend and really railed into him, I thought was very unattractive, and I didn't like that part. It just didn't feel fleshed out or explained enough for
Hmm.
me to be satisfied by it.
Yeah. And then we have David Duchovny lastly, because it's really just a movie of four people, really. And David Duchovny plays Michelle Forbes's partner, and the he's writing this piece about serial killers as they cross the United States. He's of course, he's in the X-Files, which I've seen all of. I love that show, but he is definitely kind of flat, isn't he? He's not like the most dynamic of actors.
He's not one of my favorite people. I think the reason why it worked in X Files was that he had the right amount of kind of understated kookiness to balance out Scully's more intellectual, more scientific approach. And with him, he had the right balance of just not being too serious, and so their dynamic worked well enough for that show. But when I've seen him in other material, such as Beethoven, such as
I forgot he was in that.
oh, he is, and he basically plays the same flat, unaffected character. So I don't know if he really has anything else to contribute at all.
No, I mean, who knows? I don't think so. I think that's probably why he makes such a good FBI agent because you can just sort of have this like blankness to him where you're like, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess like it's just very simple for you. You follow the law and that's what you do, you know. Great.
Right. With him, you can kind of fill in the blanks enough where you can kind of fill it in of, oh, he's the kind of nonchalant, well, not nonchalant in terms of being indifferent, but just not taking things as literally and as scientifically and as professionally as Scully does. So he has that kind of underlying sense of maybe being a bit rebellious, and for whatever reason their chemistry works. But in other material he basically plays the same character, and you can't really fit him into other roles or really get much of an effect from him. But I wanted to ask too, before we stray too far away from it, do you think that, because we discussed people like Early, people who are sociopathic and imbalanced and amoral and who have no empathy, being able to carry on relatively normal relationships, and they can. But Early actually does, when he kills Adele, expresses genuine emotion. Do you think that there was actual care and concern on his end, and that it really did hurt him to have to do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that the film has it works as a road movie, but it also works as like a sharing of worlds movie. So it's kind of the two groups affecting each other, and Michelle Forbes is nice to Adele, and she does her hair, and she kind of introduces her to rebellion against, the man in her life, and then Early introduces David Duchovny's character to the opposite, to kind of like, we used to be little kids and let's drink beer and stay out and like get in a fight at a bar, and I also think that in a way it shows Early a bit of humanity. It introduces him to like, here's some people that I don't have anything in common with, but they're nice and they're good to me, and like I think that he is fully capable of human emotion, and I think that this interaction makes him more capable, I guess is what I'm getting to. And I also think that yeah, like he really did not want to kill her, and I think that it's only because he could sense that this journey was coming to an end. They get into this really awful situation where he's killed so much, and he's exposed himself to their road companions, and they know what's happening, and at that point that's when Adele chooses to attack him and to help one of his hostages escape also. And I think he knows that his journey's at an end. Like, where's he going to go from here? He's not going to be able to kill everyone and escape and get away with it. Like, he probably knows that he's going to die, if not in the way that he dies in the movie. There's probably going to be cops coming, and I think that he feels really bad about everything that they've done and everything he's done. And I mean, what do you think?
I don't know if he necessarily regrets any of his actions aside from Adele. And that's what's so fascinating to me because the Black Dahlia killer, they did eventually figure out who did that, by the way. But let's not deviate too much. But the Black Dahlia killer, toward the end, not even the end, I mean, he had a 10 to 20-year relationship with a woman after having killed so many, not just the Black Dahlia, which they also discuss in California. Oh,
They do, yeah.
everywhere. But I'm just making that likeness because the Black Dahlia killer had a relationship after killing all of these other females prior to her, and Ted Bundy too. He had a relationship with a woman. I think he might have actually been a step parent at some point, and I always wonder why those exceptions. Was it something about that particular person that made the person not that didn't activate that gene to slaughter them, or was it just luck? With Adele, I think their dynamic just worked so well because she was a child and she was not able to see him for who he really was, and he was able to basically get his physical needs met and not be questioned and have somebody who was docile and subservient. So on a surface level it worked, but he also, I think, genuinely cared for her, and it was amazing seeing that one scene of genuine and intense emotions surfacing after he killed her. So
Yeah,
another reason why this role for Brad Pitt was so dynamic and impressive and versatile.
right. And then it also like it kind of steps up how threatening or evil or how whatever you want to say, however we see Brad Pitt though, because after he kills Adele, he then kind of like just takes Michelle Forbes' character, decides that she's going to be his partner now, and like as if he thinks that that's going to work, you know, as if he thinks she's just going to be complicit with it and go along with it. And that's kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh, this guy really does have problems. Like he doesn't really understand, and he is like a psychopath. Like that's a psychopath right there to like, you know, just not understand so much about the difference between people and assume that he can just like subjugate her and make her be the same woman that Adele was. Um, there's a few moments in this, and I don't know, maybe it's like maybe for other viewers it might be moments of incongruity. For me, it works though because like a person who was this killer would be that type of psychopath. They would think that they could do that. They would think that they could get away with that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was another point I was going to make either about Adele or Early or their dynamic, but it's escaping me at the moment. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I just thought that he and Juliette Lewis especially brought something really special and unique to their characters, and I wish this movie got more acclaim and recognition because especially when somebody such as, I don't think Tom Cruise ever really did this, but Johnny Depp has done it, even though I'm not a fan of his. But when somebody like Johnny Depp or Brad Pitt could, if they wanted to, just use their looks to coast and make fluffy romantic movies and play the heartthrob, and they choose not to. I appreciate that, even though I think Johnny Depp really overdid it with the quirk, and with the exception of What's Eating Gilbert Grape, also starring Juliette Lewis. I
That's
don't
right.
like him as an actor, but Brad Pitt really did impress me in this movie, and he did since the first time I saw it.
Yeah, he's the MVP. And like again, you know, I don't think he topped himself. I think he's really good in Seven. It's kind of his most grounded, realistic performance in a way. Um, And at this point, he was pushing himself. He used to really push himself. He was also in 12 Monkeys around this time. I think that was 95. And I kind of wish that more actors would try things like that, like take roles that are really against their type, take roles that are really affected or dirty or grungy or weird and push themselves. Like I agree. I think that that's really cool that he did that, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people do just coast by on their looks or their normal typecasting that they get put into.
Right? They find their niche, whether it's gangster films or whether it's Tom Cruise, the whole, he's this, he just does kind of a common arc for characters where
Mhm.
he has some breakdown, but then he gets better and he betters himself and he's the man again. And was he really that bad to begin with? And he kind of gets saved. It's like he has a come to Jesus moment, and after his breakdown he comes back even better, and it's kind of a common theme even though he has done
Mhm.
a variety of different films. But I can't imagine Tom Cruise being scruffy or unkempt or unappealing to such a degree that Brad Pitt presented in this movie. So another
Yeah.
of big box office actors.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting you bring him up because there was definitely a time when it was like those two were in a strict competition about like those were the two big A-list stars, leading men that would have like a big movie every year, and it was kind of the who do you like more, Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt? I wanted to ask if you have a quick answer, like what's your favorite Tom Cruise movie?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Probably Interview with a Vampire, just because he does kind of play a little bit against his type. He's beautiful to look at in that movie. Everybody is. It's a very
Yeah,
beautifully shot movie starring Kirsten Dunst, who we discussed previously. All these movies that we're discussing are linked
they
by
are.
actors or actresses in them. But I thought he brought a certain intensity to the role, and it was a little bit out of the norm for him. But apparently, Brad Pitt didn't really care for him very much on set, and they never start again together in a film. So, what
Yeah.
about you?
Um, God, I mean, I think the default answer is probably Magnolia, but like, yeah, it's probably Magnolia. I mean, I think that's his most well-written character. That might just be that it's the most well-written, but I also think that that's his best acting. I'm not a big fan. I like him, for what he does, but that's it.
I never saw that movie. It just escaped me. I don't pursue films starring Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
and I thought Vanilla Sky was pretty good. I thought he did well enough, but
Hmm.
he's never been somebody who I've pursued. I'm interested now in his involvement with Scientology and how he's become so warped and
Yeah.
brainwashed and wrapped up in that scary religion. So my interest in him is insofar as that, but not necessarily his creative work.
Yeah. No, I mean exactly. He's like his true life story would probably be more interesting than most of his movies.
You know who else is also allegedly a Scientologist and a
Huh.
lifelong that?
Who?
Juliette Lewis. Oh,
Oh. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
with all the connections today, we're not even doing it deliberately, but they all link lead to one other film starring the same actor or actress. And yeah, Juliette Lewis and Tom Cruise are hardcore, allegedly Scientologists. Tom Cruise has been more vocal about it. Juliette Lewis was born into it because her father was a
Mm.
Scientologist.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's a crazy like religion when you do some level of reading about it. I haven't done it, but I read a book called Cultish, and it was a lot of it was talking about Scientology. It's absolutely fascinating, I think, on some level.
Yeah, it's really going downhill now, but a lot of controversy and but they have their Tom Cruise and Juliette Lewis apparently. Well, California, I do recommend it. It is available for free now on Amazon, although it tends to come and go, so it probably won't after this time around be available for another year or so. And I can't advocate it enough. I again thought that Juliette Lewis and Brad Pitt did an amazing job. It's not a super fancy movie with high tech special effects in any regard, really. It's a road trip movie, so if you are into those, which I, as of now, have decided that I am, then it's one which fits that criteria as well. So it's a very insular movie. Much of it takes place in hotel rooms or within the car. So it's simple in that way, but with very deep and dynamic and intense acting abilities. And I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, what would you give it on your rating scale? Because I'm thinking about this too. I don't know where I'm gonna land.
Yeah, I want to say an 8.5, maybe an 8.75. But I think the scenes where they play clips of David Duchovny's project of pursuing serial killers, and when they play clips of just his work, the work element of it that he's pursuing, I didn't find that all that interesting. I didn't find him all that interesting. So that kind of knocks maybe a point or two, not even 2 points, but at least a point from how I would rate it. I just don't think that his flat, unaffected delivery really contributed very much. I think any other actor could have played that part and better. So I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly where I was gonna land because I agree. It's like it's really, really good, but you're right. Like that part of the story, you almost just want it to like be about something else, like or you just want to go back and watch early and see what he's doing because not only is it not well acted and not that interesting, but it's also like it's probably one of the only parts of the movie that is contrived. There are these two people that are writing about serial killers and they happen to pick up a serial killer. Like it feels a little bit too much like, oh wow, you see what we did there, like and so I kind of wish that it was just like almost entirely about something else or like it just wasn't in the movie at all. Like it doesn't need to be there and it's not well executed or interesting. So yeah, I'll probably do exactly the same. I'll give it like an 8.5.
I remember the point I was going to make previously, and this kind of ties into what we're both saying now about that part just not being that interesting. The fact that David Duchovny's character is pursuing the sites of where serial killers carried out their grisly crimes, and he has a tape recorder and he's doing interviews. And I didn't find those segments or pieces or clips to be interesting, but one point that he brought up a couple times, the character, was sometimes there's not a discernible reason why
Mm-hmm.
people do what they do. Yeah, we know that. I mean, that's been, who knows? It's a mixture of nature versus nurture, or sometimes an element or two or a million that are even beyond that. So why Early did what he did, whether it was his upbringing or just some neurological defect in his brain, or how much of it he was fully in command of, we'll never know. And David Duchovny's character, I think, wanted that element of mystery to be more compelling than I found it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the point I was going to make earlier, is that we don't know why Early did what he did. He alluded to difficulties with his father, but that was really it. We're left wondering, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, there's maybe two moments when he talks about getting the gun from his dad, and then at the end when David Duchovny's like asking him, "Are you doing this because of this, or are you doing this because of that?" And we never find out. And it's like, again, it's really, really powerful. It's really, really realistic. When you ask the villain mastermind, again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Seven, but when you ask the villain mastermind, Kevin Spacey, he like has this whole thing that he's prepared about justice and God and sins, and he goes on this rant about it. It's like a real serial killer is just gonna be like, I don't know, like they're not gonna have, I don't know. So I just found it to be much better, much more realistic, and much better in this movie. Yeah, and that we don't find out.
Yep. I think when there are loose ends and mysteries, and okay, but it seems like there should be another reason, or it's not making sense, rather than somebody like Kevin Spacey being so sophisticated and so prepared and so intellectually cognizant, that can be fascinating too. They both can be fascinating, but one is scripted and rehearsed, the other is not. So it just depends on what you're in the mood for.
Yeah, yeah. I find this type of thing always to be more interesting, just as a
Right.
film
So
preference.
if you're in a mood for more of a chaotic experience, Brad Pitt certainly brings the chaos to California. And again, I recommend it. We both individually assign an 8.5 rating. And next episode, we will be discussing the fourth floor, correct?
Yeah, yeah. We'll go with the fourth floor. Why not? I didn't have anything else picked, so sure.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Sounds good.
Don't be a hipster.
But do hang out. Okay.